Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we are unpacking a really fascinating story. It perfectly bridges the gap between digital entertainment and the literal breathtaking reality of biology. We're going to be looking at the journey of a girl named Elsa. Now, Elsa is a 9-year-old artist and a massive science enthusiast. But she kind of finds herself caught between two completely different worlds. On the one hand, she's obsessed with the epic, fast-paced action of her favorite shows. And on the other, well, she's about to discover the highly magnified, incredibly complex biology inside living creatures. We're going to explore how she navigates these two realities and, honestly, what it teaches all of us about life itself.
Okay, let's dive into this central contrast, because it's a big one. On one side, we have a digital drawing. You know, it's bright, it's flashy, but ultimately, it's inconsequential, right? On the exact opposite side, we have a biological miracle, a fragile, infinitely complex living organism. Look, it is so incredibly easy in our modern world to just spend hours staring at glowing screens, right? We get completely immersed in these digital worlds where, let's face it, nothing is truly real. But here's the thing. What happens when that digital mindset actually starts to overshadow our understanding of the profound, fragile complexity of living things out here in the physical world?
To really understand this, we need to look at Elsa's initial mindset. Like a lot of us, she absolutely loved her digital habits. She'd spend hours just squinting at her glowing screen, completely absorbed in these epic action stories. She'd watch fictional heroes swinging swords, battling villains, the whole shebang. And on that screen, it looked epic. Characters would get hurt, bright splashes of pink and red ink would fly everywhere, and then, boom, in an instant, the scene would just change. To Elsa, all of this was just thrilling, fast-paced art. It really didn't seem to matter beyond the sheer entertainment value of those bright pixels.
But here's where things get tricky. Consuming so much of this media created this really powerful digital illusion. In these shows, the action is just non-stop. Characters simply vanish into thin air, right? They just turn into a burst of pixels. The slashes and splashes we see are literally just art. There are absolutely no real consequences, and there's definitely no real pain. And because she watched so many of these glowing screens, Elsa's brain actually started to blur a major scientific distinction. She literally began to mistake violent disappearing pixels for reality. She was losing her grasp on the fundamental difference between a cool digital drawing and an actual biological miracle.
Which leads us to a pretty stark reality check. One day, Elsa found this small lizard caught in a trap. Intrigued, she wanted to take it home. But as she was walking, her mind just drifted right back into her favorite action show. And without thinking clearly, just in a moment of sheer carelessness, she squeezed the bag, and she crushed the small lizard. When someone asked her why she did it, Elsa just blinked, genuinely and naively confused. She actually asked, "What's wrong with that?" To her completely desensitized mind, squeezing that bag felt no different than a character just disappearing in an explosion of pixels on her tablet. And that right there forces us to ask a really critical question. What actually happens when our brains forget the difference between digital pixels and real life? Because the psychological impact of this disconnect is profound. Think about it. Elsa squeezed that bag without even a second thought. She had absolutely no idea that in doing so, she had just permanently destroyed a world-class scientific masterpiece. She had treated a living, breathing creature like it was just another piece of disposable code. Well, later that evening, Elsa sat down to sketch, but instead of drawing her usual fictional heroes, her scientific curiosity sort of took over, and she decided to look up the anatomy of small reptiles. And as she pored over these biology diagrams, her eyes just went wide with shock. The real-world data completely stunned her. For the first time, she was coming face-to-face with the incredible reality of what she'd actually crushed earlier that day.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the reality of blood itself. On a TV screen, blood is just red ink that's meant to look cool during a big battle sequence, right? But Elsa's research revealed a staggering biological marvel. In real biology, blood isn't just some red liquid. It is a liquid organ of absolute genius. It is a highly complex, highly functional system that is actively keeping an organism alive every single second of its life.
Let's break down the massive scale of this micro-universe that was operating inside that tiny, squished lizard. Elsa learned that this liquid ecosystem is just mathematically brilliant. It contains trillions, yes, trillions with a T, of erythrocytes. These are red blood cells perfectly shaped like tiny donuts. Definitely not the kind you'd want to eat, though. And they are specifically designed to carry oxygen molecules from the creature's lungs all the way down to its microscopic toes. Then you've got this entire army of white blood cells actively patrolling the tiny blood vessels just to fight off germs. And if the lizard ever scratched its knee, boom, microscopic platelets were standing by ready to instantly heal the wound. It's like a highly trained cellular army.
Elsa was really beginning to grasp the sheer magnitude of biology here. Every single drop of liquid inside that little animal was an incredibly advanced, living ecosystem running at absolute peak performance. This wasn't just some random collection of matter. It was a miraculous design. She learned about its tiny beating heart, its clever camouflaging skin, and this remarkably intricate nervous system. It was a literal masterpiece built by a loving and intelligent creator, and it was functioning flawlessly, right up until the very moment her hand abruptly ended it.
Which brings us to a really stark realization: careless destruction versus real power. Elsa realized that honestly, anyone can destroy a masterpiece in 1 second. Think about it. A toddler can take a beautiful, painstakingly crafted drawing and just tear it in half. A heavy boot can easily smash a highly complex calculator into a million pieces. Using your giant size to crush a micro-universe, that doesn't take intelligence, and it certainly doesn't take real strength. Destroying things is incredibly easy. And this brilliantly illustrates a massive shift in her perspective. It actually aligned perfectly with one of her favorite characters from her shows, Lady Tamayo. Now, Tamayo was a wise doctor who spent her entire life studying medicine and cellular biology. Unlike the warriors who just slashed mindlessly, Tamayo didn't view blood as something to carelessly waste. She knew that blood holds the code to life itself, and because of that, it demands deep respect and awe. The real superpower, the kind Tamayo possessed, was the power of preservation. The power to study life, to understand it, heal it, and protect it.
As all these facts washed over her, Elsa's entire demeanor completely shifted. She looked down at her own hands, her math-oriented brain fully engaged. She was no longer just a passive viewer staring at a glowing screen. No, she was thinking like an active, responsible scientist. She was deeply analyzing exactly what her hands had done that afternoon.
So, the crucial point is this formula she came up with. We can call it the core equation of life. Elsa ran this incredibly sobering calculation in her head. 1 second of carelessness multiplied by a living organism equals the permanent destruction of a biological miracle. Just let that math sink in for a moment. When she squeezed that bag, she wasn't being a cool, tough warrior from an anime show. She was just being destructive. She took an irreplaceable biological miracle and literally turned it into nothingness.
Because unlike the fictional drawing she was so used to, the real world operates on a completely different level. It features intricate cellular systems. It features beating hearts, networks of absolutely beautiful cells, and crucially, this is the big one, creatures that are capable of feeling fear and pain. The characters on her tablet, they don't feel a thing, but the real world is vibrantly alive. Destroying it for no scientific reason whatsoever isn't some act of heroism. It is simply mindless destruction.
But this brings us to Elsa's beautiful transformation. The very next time Elsa was out in nature and saw a small creature, she didn't blindly reach out to grab it or crush it. Instead, she knelt down. She observed it like a true biologist. She watched the delicate rhythm of its tiny rib cage as it breathed, and she imagined all that oxygen flowing through its miniature blood vessels. She respected its space, choosing to use her drawing skills to map out its delicate skeleton rather than destroying it. She basically became a protector.
Which brings us to our final takeaway, Elsa's new scientific vow. True power protects life. Respect the micro-universe. She learned that true strength is actually found in preservation, in understanding that the life of a tiny lizard is just as mathematically brilliant as our own. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. The next time you step outside, how will you use your power? Will you be a careless force, or will you use your strength to preserve and protect the miraculous ecosystems running right beneath your feet? Thank you so much for exploring the micro-universe with me today.